And I want to show you some Facebook video that was taken last night, and officers, during this protest. Apparently this Facebook video was taken by the victim's daughter, Lamont Scott. She was at the scene. Keep in mind, she had just lost her father. She was highly emotional. Watch.
I want the police officer that shot my daddy and killed him. Uncle David, he just said he dead. They put on the news, he dead. Y'all bitches so y'all gonna explain that with his good? Y'all gonna explain that? Tell y'all right down. I'm about to set it the off.
So Art, I just want to ask you this question as a police officer on the scene. I'm not sure if they knew that this was the daughter of the victim, but how does that affect the work of police during a protest?
It affects everything. I mean, again, peaceful protests are what we want. I mean, that's what this country is based on. I think what happens is you got a lot of individuals in the community that co-opt these types of these peaceful protests, and then you have exactly what occurred last night in Charlotte. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing to watch all the way around. I'm sitting here and it's affecting me. I feel for the family. I feel for everybody in this particular case, and unfortunately, these investigations are very complicated and they take a long time.
Adam, I understand you were there on the scene. You left to go file your story for your magazine. Tell us a little bit about what's happening right now.
Yeah, it's sort of died down a little bit, Christine, over really the last hour. There are some small pockets of protesters that are still moving around the area, not far from where the shooting happened. But really the intensity of the evening has died down, at least for the moment. Certainly the mayor is calling for calm, but I think a lot of folks and certainly a lot of people who were there earlier this evening are expecting another wave of protests at some point during the day today. What we saw earlier, though, there was a large group of demonstrators, I would say several hundred people, who had come out to the street in front of the apartment complex where the shooting had happened. And they were protesting. It started out as a peaceful protest. Maybe around 10:30 was when I started to notice people throwing bottles and rocks and things like that at police officers. A small number of people in the crowd, and there were certainly protesters who were telling folks not to throw things at the police officers. But nonetheless, that's when really things started to pick up. And I would say not long before 11 o'clock, police deployed tear gas for the first time. They did so in several waves as they tried to clear the street. There was a little bit of a lull in the action for, I would say, maybe an hour. And then a little bit after midnight, the group kind of got back together. They re-engaged with police. And then I would say maybe 1:30, 1:45 this morning was when the group of protesters actually walked out onto Interstate 85, one of the major interstates that runs through the city of Charlotte, and blocked traffic there. And then that's when some of the looting that you mentioned earlier started to happen.
Yeah, and we also understand, I was seeing local reports that a Walmart there, that some of the protesters ended up in a Walmart there, and there was some looting there as well. I mean, we're looking at pictures now from overnight of some smashed cars. You said the protesters numbered several hundred at one point. Police are telling us about a dozen officers were injured by the rocks and bottles thrown at them. Did you see or hear of any injuries among the protesters?
Yeah, we've heard from the local EMS agency that they transported 7 people from the crowd, whether they were protesters or bystanders, I don't know, but they were 7 people were transported to area hospitals with what we're hearing is minor injuries. Medics also treated a number of people on the scene. Certainly there were people dealing with the effects of the tear gas. As I mentioned, police deployed that in several waves multiple times throughout the evening, and so there were a number of people trying to catch their breath because of that. But I didn't notice any serious injuries to protesters or police, although we did hear of people getting hit with some of the flying objects.
Let me show you my face. We out here.
Tell my mom, tell my dad, I'm out here protesting.
Keith Scott's family says he was simply sitting in his car.
He was waiting on his son to get from school.
We're up here looking for a suspect who had an outstanding warrant on him. While they were in the apartment complex, they encounter a gentleman who has a gun. As they engage him, he is armed with a handgun that we found on scene as well.
I think he shot him 4 times, I'm not sure, but he's dead.
Officer Brentley Vinson also an African-American man. He has been with the CMPD since 2014, so for about 2 years.